Alright, good morning class. This is still the day of the 16th. I'm going to be talking about the Kahn Academy assignments that you have for today on Schoology. So, we got three different assignments for today. We got dividing quadratics by linear expressions with no remainders. We also got it with remainders. And then finally, dividing polynomials by linear expressions. All of these are just going into polynomial division. We're just going to go through one of each of them, and we're going to go through both versions of our division process. So we're first going to deal with the one with no remainders. So let's go over to our whiteboard. Let's take a look. So here's our question. We're going to divide x squared minus 2x plus 1, and we're going to divide that all by x minus 1. So first off, we're going to go through log division, then we're going to go through our new method, which is synthetic division. So let's take a look at our log division process first. So we know that when we set it up, we always put our larger polynomial inside of our division house and our smaller one outside. So first off, we got to make sure that we get our polynomials to look the same. We want to make sure that we're getting the same term in the front of both of our polynomials. So just like I've taught you guys before, I always want to make sure to encourage you, use parentheses before you use anything else. Before you even do the math, use the parentheses and set it up the right way. So first off, we want to get x to look like x squared. So that means we multiply by an x. And remember, when we put this x up here, we're multiplying both our two terms in our divisor by x. So let's go through and do it. X by x, that's going to give us an x squared right here. And x by negative 1 will give us a negative x. Or remember, there is technically a 1 here, okay? So now we go through and we do our subtraction. If we do x squared minus x squared, that should cancel out both of our terms here. And then if we do negative 2x subtracted by negative x, it's really going to be negative 2 minus negative 1, which is really negative 2 plus 1. What that's going to end up doing is we're going to end up getting a negative number out of there, a negative x out of this. And now what we want to bring down our plus 1. So we're going to bring down the 1 that we got here. Let's see if I can bring that over. So we got plus 1. Now we go through, we're going to set up our parentheses and our subtraction sign. Now, I want to turn my x in my divisor into a negative x. So through multiplication, I have to turn x into negative x by multiplying by a negative 1. So if I do negative 1 right here times x, that'll give me a negative x here. And negative 1 times negative 1 will give me a positive 1. Now we go through and we do, sorry about that. We're going to go through and do the rest of our subtraction. So negative x being subtracted by negative x, that ends up canceling out just like it did in the first one. And 1 minus 1 ends up giving us a nice big 0 as a remainder, which means that our answer for this should be x minus 1. So let's switch over to Kahn Academy. Let's check out our math, see if we're right. So here's our problem. And now we're going to put in our answer. We had x minus 1. And now we're going to check it. Nice big star. We got that right there. We're all good. Now, before we go on to the next problem, we want to check out our new method. So we're going to go through and deal with this with synthetic division. So here is our synthetic division process. Before we go into this, let me see if I can rope some of this down. Alright, give me just one quick second. Alright, so in order to do the synthetic division process, we do have to make sure that we set up a couple things first before we do it, okay? So let's move some of this stuff up. First off, we are going to need to find the 0 of our divisor. To find the 0 of our divisor, what we have to do is we have to set our divisor equal to 0 and solve for it. So x minus 1 equals 0. The opposite of subtracting 1 is adding 1. So let's go and do that. We got to add 1 to both sides. And we go through and we do that. And that means that both of our 1's cancel out. And we got x equaling 1. What I'm going to do with this is I'm going to put this 1 inside of this little box here. So that's our 1. That's our first step. Now, our next part of this is we have to look at our dividend. And we're going to pull out all the coefficients from here. So the coefficient of x squared is a positive 1. The coefficient of negative 2x is a negative 2. And the coefficient of 1 is, well, it's 1 because there's no x there. So that's just all we put. Now what we're going to do, we're going to put a line underneath this. And the first step is we are going to take the first coefficient we have and we're going to drag this down. So when we bring this down, we got a 1 down here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply the number that's inside of my house, the 1 over here, and we're going to multiply it times the number that's down here. So we got 1 times 1. That'll give us a 1 right here underneath our 2. Now what we're going to do, we're going to add these two together. So we got negative 2 plus 1. Since these are both different signs, remember that means that our answer underneath is going to happen through subtraction. So that means our answer down here is a negative 1. And then we do that last bit of multiplication. We got 1 times negative 1. That's going to give us a negative 1 here. When we add these two, we get a remainder or an answer of 0. This is the remainder of our process. So that means that this doesn't come into our answer. We don't got to worry about that. Next thing we do, we fill in our x's going down by one exponent that we had in our answer. So we started off for each of these with x squared and x and no x. What we're going to do is we're going to go from x squared down one exponent to just x. So we're going to write an x next to this first coefficient. And this next one, since we're going down from x to the first to no number without an x, that means that this negative 1 won't have an x next to it. Now, as a result of this, we end up getting the same answer over here as we do from the division. We get x minus 1 here. We also get x minus 1. Even though I write the 1 here and I don't write the 1 here, these are both the same problems. So that means that we'll get the same answers no matter what. So that's the first problem, okay? Now feel free to pause this, feel free to rewind if you ever want to, take a look at this new method. If you don't, that's perfectly fine. That is your preference. Now, next one we're going to look at a division problem through